Esta conferencia comenzará a grabarse.
That way you will have this video to remember things that may be of interest for you from the ATN. Please, Marianne, did you have the video? Can you share it?
Okay, I will try to show you, but it's not sure that we can get it. I will try it.
Okay.
Can you see?
Yes. Okay, that is fine. There you can see the video, that is the Iberia. Okay, then you can see some of the statistics. And as you can see here, by now there are 23 digital innovation hubs with more than 70 competence centers. And there are 3 flagship innovation experiments within the project: sensoring, an irrigation portal, and data intensive dairy production. And of course, our main goal is to go from traditional farming to digital farming. That is what we aim with this project. We have been working for 1 year, and as already Marianne explained, there are some open calls, okay, now running, and this is our team. Can you make, Marianne, can you stop it here? Just a bit earlier. Okay, don't worry.
What did you say? Because with the music.
If you could stop where it is the whole team, so everyone can see.
Okay, I'm going.
There.
Here.
Okay, you can see the whole team from Andalusia and Portugal. Here we are, the regional Ministry of Agriculture and Consulae together. You can address to any of us, okay, to ask whatever you have. From the regional cluster, we have been working, as I said, for 1 year. And for this next year, we have many activities planned. We hope you can join all of them. One of these activities is this webinar today. So I'm going to give the floor to Cynthia, who's going to, I hope, introduce the whole team from the University of Almeria, who is working on this Work Package 5. She's going, or the whole team are going to explain the ATN tools, and also how you can make it to register on the portal. After that, we will have a time for questions, okay? That time will be led by Pompeu Diaz from Consulae, our co-leader from Portugal, and he will read all the questions you have in the chat, okay? So please use the chat to ask your questions. So Cynthia, thanks very much for being here and for this time. So I give you the floor to you. And
okay.
Thanks, Maria.
If you could share the screen then with Miguel, because he'll be dealing with the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. In the meantime, let me introduce a little bit ourselves. We're from, as you said, the University of Almeria, and we have a multidisciplinary team leading Work Package 5. So we have both from the business faculties, but we also have an important team of ICT led by Manuel Berengel. We have Juan Carlos, we have Miguel, and we have Jose Carlos, and we have various people behind that working on this wheel. So let me explain a little bit what we're going to do here. We're going to talk about the ATN, which is a very important tool for hubs and for competence centers, particularly competence centers. But first, we're going to explain a little bit about, what is a competence center, what is our goal here, and how this ties into the big system. So today we'll talk about what's your role as a competence center, and it's important to focus on the word role, because you can have a role of a competence center, but you also could, for example, have the role of a digital innovation hub. Often hubs that are immature are often competence centers, predominantly. As they grow, they add more services. Yeah? So we'll go over the Agricultural Technology Navigator, how to register on that. Next slide. And our mission is we need to get you registered, not only in the innovation portal, but we need you to register your systems and competences on this tool called the Agricultural Technology Navigator. Next slide. Okay, so as you are all aware, you've seen this blob of the Digital Innovation Hub and all the actors included. This is the SmartAgriHub version of prior versions that the European Union has created. And as you can see within this turquoise area, you've got the various entities of a particular digital innovation hub. You have competence centers, you have farmers, you have education and training, you have startups, you might have industry associations, advisory services, research organizations, etc. But what's also important in this one is that you see that there are other competence centers involved. Okay, there's other DIHs at the bottom left corner as well. And what we want to get across here is that Naomi mentioned that basically the DIHs, the hubs, are the eyes and ears on the ground. The competence centers play a little bit of a different role sometimes, because even though they can work very closely on that local level, in SmartAgriHubs, we're also building up a European-wide network of competence centers. Why is that important? Because as a competence center, you might have competences, yes, that are very important for your local production system, but they might very well be competences that can be used in Hungary or in Germany or in the Netherlands or in Italy, etc. So as a network of hubs, we had to figure out a way, well, how do we get that information across the whole ecosystem? Okay, next slide, please. So just to revisit, what's the competence center? Okay, so the competence center forms this cornerstone of the hub in the sense that they provide the digital technological infrastructure of the hub. They offer the advanced technical digital expertise. They provide the access to the latest knowledge and information about digital technologies. They often have access to test facilities. This is important for some of the innovation experiments, pilot, experimental, scientific, and technological infrastructure. So that's what they do, the role they play. And who might these entities be? Well, they can be universities, they can be RTOs, they can be laboratories and demonstration farms, they can be entities with important research and development labs. That might even be some companies. But the key requisite here is that you have research plus transfer. And there's a better definition, and you can find it on the more complete definition. And you can find that on the website, and I've included a link there for you. Next slide, please. So what are we doing with competence centers in this work package and in this project in general? So it's true that what we're doing is we're trying to expand this network of competence centers. But a really important role here is, and this is what the ATN is about is classifying agri-technologies and enabling matchmaking. Because believe it or not, there is not a good classification of agricultural technologies. And that's what we're building in this project. And then afterwards, we'll have a search mechanism so that you can find the technologies applicable to agriculture that you need. In addition, within this work package, but it's not part of today's presentation, is that there will be other tools for the management of the Competence Centres network. Okay, so much like you have a lot of tools and webinars for the DIHs to help them build up their competence as an entity, we will also be doing that with the Competence Centres. But we'll get into that on other future webinars. But we have several different partners working with us, and clearly it's not just the University of Almería. We have Fraunhofer, which works with us, and they also work with Work Package 4, so we have some nice communication there. We also have a Hungarian entity, AKI, and they're working very much on the management and governance of competence centers. We have two industry partners, Fiware and Bascom, who are very important for creating those links with industry players. Okay, so basically we're building the network. We're going to map and classify the digital technologies. We're going to identify white spots. Where do we need technologies and they're not present? And also, where do we have technologies that are searching for an application? So we want to recruit new agri competence centers, but we also want non-traditional agri competence centers because technologies aren't necessarily specific to any one sector. We want to identify good practices for competence centers, just as there are good practices for digital innovation hubs. So Ahmed from Fraunhofer is working on both of those things. And we want to provide a participatory framework for this sort of light touch governance. We can deal with that on another presentation someday. Okay, next slide. So here we go, the Agricultural Technology Navigator. It's basically a wheel. So if you could imagine it physically, it would be you would turn the various dials and choose what you are. So this is an initiative of us to let competence centers showcase their systems and competencies to the rest of the community. And we've used a categorization that is based on the agricultural supply chain to make it very easy and understandable for all. It's also will be useful for other users that are not particularly sort of steeped in technological or digital information. All right. Next slide. So what this does, this wheel, and we'll go into much more detail, it shows the competences and systems that are supported by particular technologies. So it's both useful for entering what you have as a competence center, but also eventually for searching for innovation or information in the innovation portal. And we'll explain how we do that later. Next slide. All right, but let's get a few terms straight first. Okay, we talked about three things. We talked about technology, systems, and competencies. So this is important that you understand this so that when you're dealing with the navigator, you know what you're inputting. So technologies are the units of equipment or bodies of knowledge, right? They're sort of the building blocks that allow that operation or systems or competencies to function. So in this case, for example, you've got a spraying system, okay? The technology itself might be pressure sensor or a speed sensor or some sort of controller. So that's the technology. You can see them shaded. Those are the things that are part of the system. Those are the specific technologies. Next slide. The system, as you can see, the whole thing is shaded. The system is the whole set of components, right? That takes the input, changes it, and then produces an outcome. So for example, a very, very popular one would be a decision support system for irrigation. It might also be a drone. That's the system. Next slide, please. And finally, the competencies is that area of technical expertise that your competence center might have, right? You might have test facilities or scientific infrastructure specific to some sort of expertise or knowledge. So for example, in this case, the competence would be the design of agro sprayers. That's our competence, okay? So just to keep those three concepts a little bit straight so we know what we're talking about. Okay, next slide. All right, now Miguel is going to take over here and talk about how you actually register your systems, competencies, and technologies in the portal, okay? Later on in this presentation, he's also going to talk about how to get into the portal and how to register there. But for now, let's just focus on what you do when you get to the registry of the ATN in the wheel.
Thank you very much, Cynthia, for your nice introduction. Before starting explaining to you all how the wheel works, I would like to insist in one very important thing for our team, for WP5, and is that in the registration procedure, I will explain. I will go through it later on. One of the very important steps is when it asks you for input on the technologies, these building blocks of your technology systems. It will ask you for those technologies supporting the system or competence. And it is very important for us to have all competence centers giving some input into this field. And you will understand why in the next few slides. So some other definitions explaining how the wheel works, and the wheel, as you may see it here, is composed by different rings, and these rings they rotate, right? So each one of these rings represents a layer of the supply chain. The outer ring is the entity, the ring that represents entities, which are the type of agents providing the competence or the system. So we have selected here, we have adopted here three options. One are competence centers. The second is companies as technology providers, and the third one would be an organization such as a professional organization, a growers organization, etc. So the second ring represents the inputs, right? So inputs as the cluster of production factors used in the value chain when the proposed competence or technology system best fits. So the different options we have adopted here are resources, standards, equipment, risks management, biotechnologies, software, and facilities and land. If we go deeper in the wheel to the third ring, which represents the farm production and post-harvesting stage, consider as the cluster of production activity where the proposed competence or system best fits. The different options here represents the different sectors within the agri world. So we have fruits, we have vegetables, we have arable, we have agriculture, dairy, novel foods, and animal production. And then we have three kind of free fields to cover all possibilities, and these are different option that is not represented in the wheel as it is proposed now. We have not applicable, or we have all. For example, a system or a competence may be applicable to all of these sectors, or to none of these, right? So this is why we have included these three free options here. The next ring is the distribution chain, the distribution ring, right? Distribution understood as a cluster of intermediation activities between the production part, the productive agents, and the consumers, where the proposed competence or technology system best fits. So we have different options here, like logistics, marketing, visibility and traceability, and market trade. And then again, these three free fields: other, not applicable, and all. And at last, the deepest layer, the inner ring, represents the consumer's part in the supply chain. So these are the end agents in the value chain, right? And the three different options we have adopted here are wholesalers and retailers, online and home, and at last, not applicable. So this is how the ring works. Cynthia, I think, is going to explain now the different stages that Work Package 5 will go through in order to improve the system to classify technologies.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's important to understand, okay, we talked about why it's so important to input your technologies. So I want to explain why, because I think it's good that you understand that you, as competence centers, are help building a better system, a better search system. Because in the first stage where you register and you input all of the things that Miguel just explained, at a certain point when we get a quantity of competence centers that have done that, in the stage 2, the University of Almeria, particularly Manuel's team and Jose Carlos, will start going through all of those technologies that you have input and build a better classification system for agri-technologies. Okay, I won't go into the detail here, but I mean, they're using this control loop approach with 3 layers. So they're dealing with data acquisition, data processing, action, and they go down in sort of this waterfall system. But it's more complex. If anyone's interested in it, I'm sure they'll be happy to share it. But the point here is that once we get this information on technologies, we want to classify it and thus come up with, and you can see this in stage 3, a pre-configured set of technologies. Okay. So that way we will ascribe a definition to more of them. So once we've got that, in stage 4, when you would actually start inputting competencies, instead of having that free space to describe your technologies, you'll have pre-configured selection options. And what does that mean? It means that it allows a more sophisticated search function. The end result of this is that across Europe, competence centers and other actors and users, digital innovation hubs in particular, will be able to perform searches based on that supply chain, looking for particular technologies. And it will be really, really helpful, because somebody who's working, let's say, in arable crops, and they want to have something that goes to wholesale, right? Yeah. Or whatever, they can design the kind their supply chain needs and search for the right technologies. Okay, so for us, it's really important to stress that all of the competence centers that are part of SmartAgriHubs are actually helping to build a better search system, which will be to the benefit of all. Okay, Miguel, are you picking the second?
So as Cynthia said in one of the first slides, we have a double mission, and the first one is to have as many competence center registered in the innovation portal as possible. And to do so, what they will have to do is just to enter into the portal, and then sign in as users of the system. If they don't have an account, they just have to create one. And then after this account is being created, they should access the network menu. And this is how the actual network looks like. These numbers here represent the number of organizations which are registered in the innovation portal, and they will just have to click in add organization and provide the data of their competence center. In fact, as competence centers are affected, this is the real situation today of the of competence centers registered in the innovation portal. Okay, so once our competence center is registered, is part of the SmartAgriHubs community, we have the option from now on to register data on our systems, competences, and technologies. So if we enter as users into the platform and we click into the organizations option, then we enter into this menu here, which describes the name of organization, the organization we belong to, and one of the options here is systems and competences. And if you click here, then the system will guide you to this new page in which you have two options: add a system or add competence. So if you click on add system, for example, it will guide you through all information that we require from you to provide to know more about these systems or these competences you are offering to the community. So in this example, for example, we're going to use again this autonomous sprayer, which is composed, as Cynthia explained before, of these building blocks, these technologies, right? So we go in one of the steps of the registration procedure for systems and competences. We may access the wheel, the Agricultural Technologies Navigator. So for this particular example, for the first ring, we may choose competences, right? So we click on a menu, and then the ring moves to this competence centers section of the first ring, which aligns with this red line vertical here. Okay, if we go to the next ring, the inputs ring, this spraying system is a piece of equipment. So if we click on equipment, again, the ring aligns with the red line. Okay, if we go deeper to the farm production and post-harvesting options, and we select not applicable, vegetables, the vegetable option will align with the red line. Distribution ring is not applicable, since this system doesn't reach so deep in the supply chain wheel. And again, in wholesalers and in the consumers ring, not applicable. But for example, if we were dealing with a system related with transport or traceability, then we will choose in the fourth ring a different option, which would be visibility and traceability or logistics. Okay, so at the end, what we have is a kind of a combination of different options, which works as a code in a safety box. It will describe our system and or competence, and in further stages of this ATN development, it will serve to search and find new solutions of competences and systems that are available in the SmartAgriHubs community.
Okay.
Okay.
So as Miguel mentioned earlier, we've got the competence centers on the map, and our goal is to get as many competence centers as possible to build a really robust system that is useful for the digital innovation hubs across Europe. What's really important too, of course, is to have those competence centers really input their systems and competencies for two reasons: clearly to showcase what they have so that the rest of the world can know about it, but also to build a very robust system of digital technologies. While it's true that we only have about 114 registered, we've actually identified from Work Package 4 over 500 that are, we think, meet the definition and could easily be identified within regional clusters. So we'll be working on getting those people registered, and our overall target is 2,000. So the regional clusters are the ones that are responsible for this with the digital innovation hubs, but of course with Work Package 5 helping as much as possible, giving information, tutorials, etc., so that we can reach that target number. Next slide. There's a lot of resources that are available, so you can see that here. There will be more to come. One thing I just wanted to mention, when Miguel was going through the wheel, the very first part, he mentioned that there's competence centers, organizations, and other entities and tech providers. For now, we are only registering competence centers and their technologies and systems and competences. In the future, there's no reason why this can't be used for tech companies, but the coordinators of the project want to do this step by step. So we will be starting with the technologies, competences, and systems that we find in competence centers. So we do get some questions sometimes from technology companies saying, well, yeah, but we'd really like to register our systems. The difference here is that the competence centers usually are sort of more cutting edge. They're closer to the research and development, whereas tech companies would have closer to market solutions or in the market solutions, okay? So for now, we're looking more at the cutting edge technologies. So that's the difference. So again, our mission, get as many registered as we can. And also to get you to, if you're a CC, to register your systems and competencies. If you're a digital innovation hub, to find your competence centers and encourage them to register and upload and showcase what they have on the Agricultural Technology Navigator. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Cynthia and Miguel. I hope our competence centers here have many questions. So this is the time for questions. You can both, I think, as there are not many people, I think we can also open our microphones to ask whatever you think it is suitable. But if not, if you prefer to write your question on the chat, Pompeu will read them for you. So whatever you think it is the best, go ahead with your questions.
Yes, sure. And well, first of all, thank you, Cynthia and Miguel, for your presentation. And also, if you like to write your questions in Spanish or Portuguese, we can also do the translation and read them for everyone to understand.
While people are thinking of questions, I just wanted to also add the point that in addition to adding your technologies, to allow people to really showcase what they have, we've provided that people can upload videos. And I think that that's really useful if you have a competence or a solution, to have a short video that you can really show to the world. That option will be available.
So we have a first question. So Amilcar Duarte asked, what are the advantages to the CCs of being registered in this platform?
Yeah, the advantages are by virtue of registering in the innovation portal, it gets you into the whole SmartAgriHubs community. Okay, so you can access information, news, and understand what other hubs and competence centers are out there. The advantages of registering your systems and competencies are that you are showcasing to the European community what it is that your competence center can do. And that way people can find you and ask to collaborate with you, to use your competence and systems, perhaps bring them to market, perhaps find new applications. So that's what it is. It's basically making a system that allows you to participate in a much broader market and help through the digitization of agriculture.
Thank you, Cynthia. We have another one. Sergio Macias asked, is it an example in the video resource on how to search service competence works? I mean, the potential clients look for services. Are they surfing via forms like we do, uploading service with the wheel procedure, or they just put keywords? Thank you. I think this question relates to the search mechanism.
Yeah, how the search will work. Okay, we've Manuel and Jose Carlos are here too, so if you want to jump in, please do. But the search will function based on looking, I mean, that sort of triangle that you saw in the supply chain, right? So you can start there, but you can also start for technologies, yeah? So that's why the classification system is so important, that you'll be looking at searching for the classified technologies and also be able to locate those technologies within that supply chain configuration. But be careful here with the idea of potential clients, okay? Because the difference between the competence centers and, let's say, tech companies that have something that's on the market, it's an important distinction, because the competence centers are within the digital innovation hubs, or they cooperate with various digital innovation hubs, and they're dealing with sort of cutting edge technologies. And sometimes they might be ready for market. It depends a little bit on what the technology is, right? But other times it might be that the potential client is actually a tech company or an entity that could scale up solutions and that kind of thing. So have I answered your question? So they'll be searching, they can search for solutions through various methods, either through the technologies or saying I'm in arable and I need or I'm in fruit and vegetable and this is my configuration in the supply chain and this is the solutions that I'm looking for.
Sorry, also I would like to add regarding the Sergio question that the project is also working on a map-making tool where the idea is to include the services of the digital innovation hubs and where the sector can find these services through keywords or a search field. But this is another different tool, more focused on digital innovation hubs, that is probably is available at the end of this year or the beginning of the next year, okay? So just in case that this will be useful for you, but this is independent totally different to the Navigator tool.
Yeah, if I might just add an observation on that. I would think that the digital innovation hubs would also be interested in using the search function to see what competence centers offer. Because you're absolutely right that it's a digital innovation hub that's offering these services to their clients and also looking for matchmaking. But there's no reason why the digital innovation hub can't use the ATN to help them in those matchmaking activities, okay? And I think that the hubs and the competence centers need to somehow make that coherent so that we don't have two different avenues for searching, okay? But the ATN can be a tool for the digital innovation hubs as well. So it's another resource that they can use to get better information on the competence centers that are around Europe, okay? And then what about technological gaps? I see Manuel has jumped in here, but just before I do that, the technological gaps for the white spot analysis is what we've called it. AKI is actually working on that, and they've got, they're working on a system to identify the gaps and also to bridge those gaps. Must be a later stage. Okay, sorry, I'm just jumping up so I can get Manuel's point, which said a complement to Cynthia's answers. Okay, this will be open to the CCs participating in the projects to fill in their systems and competencies. Yeah, it will be open at a later stage. Okay, and that's what I talked about before, was the various stages where the University of Almeria did the classification and then would come up with a system so that they could be searching. So the search function won't kick in until after the classification. Okay, but that's why it's so important that, and Miguel's mentioned it and I've mentioned it, that you actually enter in your systems and competencies so that people can find you. And then Pedro, you said, well, I'm going to let Pompo, if you want to read this.
Yeah, sure. I just read the question. So Pedro Malo mentioned the existence of the IoT catalog, and
exactly
also well, refers the almost the duplication of creation of these kind of platforms where we can integrate data. And the question is, in what ways does our platform ATM differs from this kind of IoT catalog? And do you expect that data on this catalog will be integrated in the ATN?
Yeah. Manuel, if you want to jump in, please do. But I know that we know the people behind the IoT catalog, and so does, of course, SmartAgriHubs. That's exactly why I wanted to make the distinction between that we're not trying to be tech providers that have things ready in the market, because we know that that exists. Okay, this was the competence centers. What we're building here is different. Clearly they're related, and it would certainly be nice if they were somehow integrated. Okay, but you know, that's a decision that's made at the coordination level and at project level, and it's also a decision that requires funds to coordinate these two things. Okay, but I mean, I certainly would see it as a positive thing. But the IoT catalog is about, if correct me if I'm wrong, but we're an IOF as well, so I mean, we know about it. But the IoT catalog is a catalog. It's about what exists on the market, whereas what we're dealing with is a little bit different. It's more that sort of pre-market or cutting edge technologies that hubs can then find. Because remember that the hubs have all those other ecosystem actors that can take those technologies and bring them to market, apply them in new ways, and do different things with them. Yeah. So it's not that we're trying to build a different system. We are really quite aware of that. We looked at the ACUS system, the SmartAgri system. We looked at the IoT catalog. We looked at what Fraunhofer had done, etc. So the intention here is to build a different sort of piece of the puzzle and not duplicate. If there can be a way of integrating that, that would be fabulous. And I would suggest that who's ever in charge of this should propose that to the Commission. Because you're right, we have all this wonderful information, and I'm not so sure that we're leveraging it as we could be. And of course, if the IoT catalog people have ideas of how to integrate better, we're more than happy to hear about what we might do. Manuel, did you want to add anything on there? I know that you and your team were really paying attention to the IoT catalog.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Cynthia. No, yes, we have. We know very well the IoT catalog. In fact, we have also collaborated in the past. But you pointed out, this approach is different because it's focused on competence centers, not on IT companies and so on. But anyway, as you also said, let's see what's happened at the end of the project. We have to focus on this, on competence centers, And in fact, we have also taken into account the SmartAgriHubs approach and so on. We have seen what is already in place to develop this ATN that I insist is for competence centers, not for tech companies and so on.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia and Miguel. Any other questions?
Any other question?
Okay, just let me add one thing, because I don't want people to be frustrated. Getting the ATN to function online on the innovation portal, so that's another group of people that were responsible for that. There were a few glitches on moving it from our demos, which were working perfectly, and when they put it online, a few things happened. So we think we've solved almost absolutely everything. And the only thing we're doing is waiting for one or two small things to be done, and then it can be completely open. Okay, so you might not, unless you're a competence center that's already been chosen as part of baiting testing, etc., you might not yet be able to find how to get there. But very soon, we're waiting for Schuttler and Partners, who are the people who run the innovation portal, to fix one small thing. And then you will get further news on how to easily access this through the portal. And we want them to put on sort of buttons and access links, so it makes it easy for everyone to find it. Because the innovation portal at times is a little bit complex until you know how it works. Okay, so don't be frustrated if you can't find it today, but very soon you should have better instructions on how to access everything easily. And also thank you very much to the regional cluster for giving this opportunity to work package 5 to show the ATN.
Thank you, Cynthia. I think if there's no more questions.
Yeah, I think so.
Noemi?
Okay, thank you very much, Pompeu, for dealing with this part. Thank you, Cynthia and Manuel and Miguel and the whole Work Package 5 who are present here, who joined this webinar. Thank you for explaining more in depth what these tools are. I hope all competence centers that are here represented have a clear idea of what this is about. Please, if you have any other questions after this webinar, or do you want to know more about anything of the project, please contact us. We will try to solve those questions, and of course, in any case, we are in contact with Work Package 5, so we can solve all your questions with them. Thank you very much for being here. Please consider the ATN tools as an opportunity, as Cynthia said, to be there, but also for to open your market, to open your scope. Sorry. And please go and visit the SmartAgriHubs website. And also, if you didn't do that before, subscribe the newsletter, which are really interesting for sure. And please also register your competence center on the website. Do not forget about that. And just to finish, I would like to please to ask you to open your camera so we can have a photo for, you know, for social media and so on. If you don't mind, please open your camera so we can take a picture. Some of you are a little bit shy. Please go ahead. Don't be shy.
Camera on.
Okay, just one moment. Thank you very much. So thank you and see you for sure on the Smart Agri Hubs. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.